Hey everybody, I'm Nathaniel Dodson from tutvid.com. Today we're going to take a look at creating this pretty sweet, 3D style logo or icon here in Adobe Illustrator. It's so sleek, it's so beautiful, it's so smooth. The colors are just going to be great. You can edit it however you like. Now, we are straight up stealing this design from this amazing artist, but we are going to create it from scratch. We're not going to trace their artwork or anything like that. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to explore the techniques that they used. You got to check out this artist. They have amazing work. Their Dribbble, or Dribbable, as I like to call it, their Dribbble profile is dribbble.com/yoga, Y-O-G-A. Amazing, incredibly talented artist, illustrator, designer. You gotta check them out. So let's jump in and check out this tutorial. All right, so here we are in Adobe Illustrator, and I've created a new document, 2560 by 1440. It can really be any size you want. That's just the document size that I'm going to roll with here. A couple of things I want to do. I want to, number one, go up here to View and just make sure all of my snapping is shut off. Snap to grid, pixel point. I don't want any of them turned on at this exact point in time. We want to do a couple things first. Next, we're going to slide over here, and underneath our rectangle tool, we have the ellipse tool. I want to create an ellipse. And just to keep things simple, what I'm going to do is, here you can see I've got my fill. I'm just going to move down here and set my fill. Actually, I'm not going to set my fill to none. Let's just give our fill any old color. I'm going to go with like a bright magenta here. I want to select my stroke here and just get rid of that. So I'm going to set that to none so it's not distracting us. Click a single time, and we want to set our ellipse to the size of 400 by 400. This is just the size that's going to work well for this tutorial, and if you're following along, I would recommend you just follow along at the exact size that I'm using so there's no confusion. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Now what we need to do is duplicate this ellipse. So I'm going to use the hotkey Command or Control C to copy it, and then I want to paste it right in place. So under here, Edit, we have Paste in Front. That's going to paste it in place in front. Note the hotkey Command or Control F. So we'll paste in front. If I open up my Layers panel, you can see we've got two ellipses. Great. Now here's where things get a little bit, not really complicated, but you want to really take note and follow along carefully. I'm going to hold down Shift and nudge this new ellipse to the right 9 times. So I'm going to go hold down Shift and hit my right arrow key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I'm going to nudge it upward 8 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. I'm going to select my original ellipse now and copy and paste it in place again. So Command or Control C and then Command or Control F. You can see we have a third ellipse that appeared down here. Great. And what we want to do now is nudge this one to the left 10 times while holding down Shift. So Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we want to nudge it upward a single time. All right, now I'm going to select both of these new shapes by holding down my Shift key and selecting it. You can see I've got both of the new ellipse selected. And I want to make sure my Pathfinder panel is open. So I'll go Window, and here's Pathfinder. There we go, it popped open. I want to choose this option right here, Intersect. See that Intersect? So we're going to just click that, and now we kind of have this petal shape left behind. So all we're doing is saving the bits of the ellipses that are overlapping. So that's great. Now I'm going to select my original ellipse again. We need to create 2 more of those kind of petally shapes. I'm going to copy it, paste it in front, Command or Control F. I'm actually going to move up and collapse my color panel here a little bit so we can really see what's going on. There's the new ellipse that I just created. And this one, we want to just shift it upward twice while holding down the Shift key. So Shift up, up, great. Select the original ellipse once more, Command or Control C and Command or Control F. And this one we want to shift to the left 31 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31 times. And then I want to nudge it upwards 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I do have notes to help me remember the exact positioning here. And then I'm going to select both of those new ellipses. You can see there's 2 center ellipses. We have them both selected right there. Great. We're going to come back to our Pathfinder panel, and once more we're going to choose to intersect these. So we have, if I shut off my original ellipse, we've created a couple of these petal shapes. All right. I'm going to turn on my bottommost ellipse here because we need to create a third petal shape. Command or Control C to copy. Command or Control F to paste in front or in place. Hey, so just a quick break for what we're working on in there. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, consider supporting the channel by picking up a copy of one of my Photoshop courses. A link will appear up there in the top corner of this video. I also have a link down in the description to this video. It's the best way to support this channel. Pick up a copy. It is a Photoshop course, not an Illustrator course, but you're going to love it if you're into graphic design or design stuff in general. Lots of good stuff to be learned, and you're supporting the channel, helping us do what we do here at tutvid.com. And if you pick up a copy, thank you so much. This channel is supported by viewers just like you. Thank you. And this one I want to hold down Shift and nudge to the right 26 times. And by the way, I could be going up here to transform move if I had taken the time to figure it all out that way, and that would probably be a little bit faster. But just to keep things simple so they're just easy, this is the way that I have it written down, so this is the way we're going to do it. Hold down Shift, nudge to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. And then we're going to nudge it up 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. And we need to select that original ellipse, copy, paste in front one more time. And this one, we want to shift once to the right and then down 2 times. So just like that. So we're going to select these 2 bits right here. And once more, come to Pathfinder and choose to intersect. Save that one petal shape. And if I shut off my underlying ellipse, you can see we have these 3 petal shapes. Now, you see how this petal shape here is actually overlapping the big middle petal shape? I want the same for this petal over here. So I'm just going to select that, and I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and I'm just going to drag it up and it's kind of to the right just a little bit. All right, see now it's kind of like they're all joined together, if you will. That's great. All right, we're going to turn on the bottom ellipse shape just like that. And we're going to select all 4 of these shapes, drag a selection over them just like that. Once again, we're going to jump to the Pathfinder panel, and we're going to choose this option right here, Divide. It's going to basically break all these shapes up, every bit of overlapping shape. All of these are now individual shapes, but as you can see here, they're all grouped together, which is going to make them a little difficult to select. So we'll go Object and choose Ungroup, and now we have all these different paths. Well, I'm going to select the bits I don't want. I know I don't want this bit right here. I'm going to select and delete that. I don't want this bit right here. I'm going to select and delete that. And I also don't want this little bit here. I'll select and delete that. And you can see now we have this really nice shape. A couple things we might want to adjust. This here is a little bit pointy, maybe not perfect. And over here we have a little bit of like a flat / concave, slight concave spot. Now, to keep this tutorial simple in this case, we're not going to mess with those, but that probably would be something you want to go in there and tweak the individual anchor points, the tangent handles, and just smooth all that out. It's really not a huge deal, but more than we want to get into here. All right, I'm going to select all of these shapes. You can see it's selected all of these individual shapes. And once more, we're going to look to the Pathfinder panel, and I'm going to choose to merge them. Boom, and now we have one nice, almost floral-looking shape that we just created from a single ellipse. I just want to bump in here for a second and remind you guys, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here and you like this tutorial, make sure you subscribe to the channel by using that subscribe button down there so you never miss any other Illustrator tutorials in the future. Well, see, that wasn't too bad. Let's get back to the tutorial. Find my pen tool to the anchor point right there on the top, and I'm going to click this way, and I'm going to draw a nice long highlight out this way. I'm going to drag the shape over here. I'm going to join my path, and I'm going to hold down Alt-Option, when we join the path, and just pull that shape right back through something kind of like that. The thing I'm most concerned with here, and if I just change the fill to like a solid white here, you'll see, the thing I'm most concerned with is I want right there where like the shape is going to run over you kind of that interior point. I want to make sure that that exactly lines up. So like if I reduce the opacity of this to like 25%, let's just say hypothetically this is my highlight. You see how that is not perfectly lined up. It's kind of messy. So before this gets out of hand, let's grab our direct selection arrow here and select this anchor point here and just drag it over and try to line it up as perfectly as we can. Just something like that is great. And if the highlight runs out over the white background, that's fine because we're going to mask this to the shape in just a minute. So it's almost better if it runs out and it's a little bit too big. It's easy to mask it. It's a little bit more difficult to make it perfect. In fact, let's just select this. Let's set the opacity back to 100%, and that's, by the way, over in the transparency panel. We're going to fill this with a black to white gradient. So let's double click here, open up our gradient panel, and just click on the little thumbnail or the color swatch. And I'm going to grab my gradient tool over here in the toolbar, and I'm going to drag the gradient kind of down this way. So I create this nice kind of highlight. Now we want to drop away the black, but see how that's like a charcoal black? It's not really solid black. Let's click on that black color stop here in the gradient slider. Double click to open up our color panel here and just switch this to the RGB. And you can see now it's a nice rich black. That's great. I'm going to come over here to the transparency panel and we're going to set this blend mode to screen. That's going to drop away the black, just leaving the white. And at this point, we can reduce the opacity to something like 40% so we get a nice, sharp, crisp highlight. Again, don't worry about this nonsense sticking out over the white. We're going to mask it all in just a moment. Let's grab the pen tool again. Let's create a highlight here for the big center portion. I'm going to start right here on this anchor point. Let's draw a nice big highlight kind of running this way. Be something like this. And once more, we just basically want our shape to come through this little interior point at a good angle. It's not quite going to be perfect there, but I'm not concerned because once more, what we'll do, we'll set this to the blend mode of screen. You can see how we're already getting that black to white gradient. That's great. But we need to zoom in right over here and just make sure we align. We want to make sure we align this interior point. So grab your direct selection arrow, the white arrow tool, grab this path right down here and just bump it over a little bit. Make sure that everything's still going to be kind of lined up correctly. That's not too bad. We actually might need to move this point out a little bit up here just so we're getting a good angle here and we're not leaving any of the petal, if you will, along here uncovered in terms of the highlight, making sure it runs all along that edge. There we go. That's pretty good. And last but not least, we'll get this other little petal here. I want this one's highlight to run kind of in the opposite direction, so we'll run it off like this way. I think that'll be pretty cool. Something kind of like so. And I don't really care about, all the shape out here because, again, it's all going to be masked in. I'm not concerned at all about that. Let's set the blend mode here to screen. Let's set the opacity to like 50% for this one. Did we reduce the opacity up here? No, we didn't. But one of the things here is the solid white in the gradient is all the way out here. So what I can do is grab that gradient slider and just bump the white slider over and kind of intensify that a little bit. If that's the way I want it, that's great. And then I can still come in and reduce the opacity. So I have a lot of options. For there, I think I'm going to set the opacity to like 65%. All right, let's select all of these highlights. Hold down your Shift key, select the first one, select the second one, and select the third one. And then we'll go Object and choose to group them together. All right, and then to mask these in, it's really a piece of cake. Just select the underlying, the pink layer here. Command or Control C to copy it to your clipboard. Then select that highlight group right here. See in the Layers panel, we just select it. And then come up here to the Transparency panel. And we're going to double click on this swatch to add a layer mask. And now we're going to go Edit, Paste in Front. It's going to paste that pink shape right in place. Now, it's filled with pink, which isn't going to show through 100%. So let's just double click over here on our Fill Color Swatch and just make sure we set this to complete solid white. And there are our highlights looking beautiful. Now just come over here and select this thumbnail to get back to sort of normal editing mode. And we have our base shape created. All right, so let's turn the grid on and we're going to use a little bit of snapping for this next step. You can really see that little kind of like not perfect curve is really bugging me, but I'm going to try to ignore it here. I'm going to come up here to Illustrator and choose Preferences, and I'm going to go to Guides and Grid. Now, if you're on a Windows machine, this is going to be under the Edit menu, and it'll be down here somewhere. You'll have your Preferences, Guides, and Grid. And I want to make sure, number one, grids and back, we want that to be checked off. We want to see the grids in front of our artwork. We want to have a grid line every 50 pixels with 5 subdivisions. This basically means that when I turn the grid on, we're going to have a grid line every 10 pixels. Remember, we made our initial shape here 400 pixels across, so it's going to be kind of useful for us to have all this. I'm going to go View. I'm going to come right down here to Show Grid. It's going to turn that grid on. You can see that's great. And I'm also going to go View and choose to Snap to Grid. So at this point, I can just select all of this artwork, the highlights and this, and I can try to snap them into place and just see. They should fit side to side just about perfectly between grid lines, right? That's lined up with that grid line. That's right there lined up with that grid line. I know at the top things get a little funky because we extended the shape and kind of morphed it a little bit, but everything else should be lined up pretty well. Now what we need to do is create a few different ellipses. So I'm going to click once, and I'm going to create a 150 by 150 pixel ellipse. I'm going to hit OK, and we can make this any color. So maybe I'll make this yellow just so it really shows on top of our pink shape here. And I'm going to drag this down, and I'm going to just kind of click it into place right here. So the idea is that I want it to be about halfway up my shape when I consider it top to bottom. And because I've snapped the grid turned on, it'll really snap into place pretty nicely and be aligned, virtually perfectly with that edge. So that's great. I need to create another ellipse now. I'm going to click, and I'm going to make this one 100 by 100 pixels. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to align it to the middle, but over on the other side of my little pink shape here. So you can see I got my larger ellipse on the left, the smaller one on the right. And if I hit Command or Control R to bring out the rulers, and I drag a ruler down, you can see that the middle of the circles are just kind of perfectly riding right across there. At least I'm pretty sure that's the exact middle. Maybe the exact middle is a little up. But it's close enough. It'll work for our purposes here. Oops, I'm going to redo that. I didn't mean to undo that. I'm going to hide my rulers, Command or Control R. We need to create another circle, so I'm going to grab the ellipse tool. I'm going to click here. I'm going to make this one 80 pixels by 80 pixels. I'm going to hit OK. And I want to basically, this is going to be sort of the bird's head. So I want to place this kind of somewhere up, I don't know, around the middle area of this center petal shape, just like that. Now we need to create one final ellipse, and this one's going to be 40 pixels by 40 pixels. And basically all I need from this is the center top point. So right where that center top anchor handle is, I want that to be aligned with the center left point of the ellipse that I just dragged into place. So kind of it'll be sitting right there. So we'll drag this down, and because Smart Guides and Snap to Grid are turned on, it should be relatively easy to make that happen. So you can see there, we have these few different shapes in place. Now this doesn't look like anything special, but this is all part of drawing with shapes as guides. And this is also another reason why it's really nice to have Smart Guides turned on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select these 4 ellipses, just like this, and I'm going to go View, and I'm going to choose guides, and I'm going to choose make guides. I want to convert these shapes to guides, and you can see, well, it's difficult to see, but they're blue outlines. In fact, it's so difficult to see. I'm going to change the color of my underlying shape here. Maybe I'll make it more of like this, a tannish color or something like that. Maybe I'll make it more of an orangey color, just like that. So you can see these guides that we have in place. You know, actually, that's maybe a bad color to work with. It's difficult to really see. I'll go with like a light green. That might be a little bit easier. All right, so we have all of these different outlines, and now we're ready to take our pen tool and begin drawing what's going to be a not super complicated shape, but semi-complicated shape. So I'm going to grab the pen tool here. I want to, maybe I'll change the fill here to something like white. In fact, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of the fill altogether. We're going to swap the fill and the stroke. I'm just going to draw with a stroke because it'll just be less distracting, and I'll maybe make the stroke, you know, I'm going to make the stroke bright blue just so we can really see it. So what I'm going to do here, and because I have my smart guides turned on, and actually at this point, probably snap the grid, it's going to be best if we shut that off. Because I have smart guides turned on, I can drag a path from exactly where those paths intersect. See how it says, look, that's the intersection point? Great. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to hold down Shift and drag down to about right there, and then I'm going to loop around to somewhere right around, I don't know, maybe here. We don't have to exactly follow our path. Our path is more or less a general idea of where we want to be. You know what, I'm actually going to take the path right there. You can see I'm going to just loop that right in there, and then I'm going to loop all the way up. And what I want to do is the kind of furthest left point on this smallest circle is going to be the tip of the bird's beak. So I'm going to intersect with that right about there or so, and I'm just going to drag that over nice and smooth. Now I'm going to hold down my Alt-Option key, and I'm going to click on that anchor point because I want to retract that tangent handle right there. Alt-Option to just get rid of that, and then I'm going to come over here, and somewhere along this line, I'm going to create a nice little beak. Just kind of something like that. Hold down Alt-Option, and actually I'm going to pull out a tangent handle. Maybe actually I'll pull it straight up, something right about there. And then we're going to come over the top of this circle guide to make the top of the bird's head. Something like that should be pretty good. And then I want the back of the bird to kind of basically loop around this circle down here. So I'm going to come down here to the intersection point. I'm going to say, yep, loop right around it maybe that way. And then we'll come all the way out here, and I'll just drag this out to create a nice kind of just sharp point coming out of the shape. And then we'll just drag this or click, add a bunch of anchor points, loop all the way around here, and complete our path. So at this point, I'm going to try just hiding my guides, and let's see what we've got. Let's go View and just choose Guides and choose to hide the guides. This isn't going to get rid of them. It's just going to hide them. And we can like look over our shape. It's not quite the way I want it to be, but I think it's close enough that we can really work on it and clean this up a little bit. So in order to make this a little bit more like it's going to be, let's go ahead and swap the fill and the stroke at this point. So we're going to fill it with solid blue. You can see it kind of looks a little rough. We'll clean it up though. But most of all, we really want to mask it to our original sort of lotus, I don't know, flowery looking shape. So I'm going to select that green shape. Once more, we'll go Edit, Copy. We're going to select our bird outline bit. We're going to double click over here to add our layer mask. And I'm going to go Edit, Paste in Front, and we're just going to fill this with white. So we're going to come over here and make sure we double click on the fill, set it to just solid white. Great, hit OK. Then select our little thumbnail right here to get back to normal editing. All right, now what we can do, I kind of like the way it's coming in and out on the sides. That's nice and smooth. I'm going to grab my direct selection tool here. The top of the bird's head needs to be flattened out a little bit. So I'm going to select this anchor point here, and let's just let's choose to change this a little bit, maybe something like that. The bird's beak could stand to be a little bit longer, maybe something kind of like that. Let's try to drag out the handle there, really change the angle of that. And this is where you come in and you really just tweak. You really tweak and you adjust the actual path itself. I'm going to pull this straight up, maybe round off the top of the bird's head a little bit. This part of the head is not coming together quite like I want it to. I'm going to hold down Alt-Option here and just try to adjust just ever so slightly. Something like that. That's pretty good, but I still think we could move the whole bird's head down. So in order to select and kind of shift the head of the bird, I don't want to select any of the stuff in the back. All right. In fact, I'll go View and I'll just hide the grid temporarily. You can see how we really need to clean up the back of the bird's head there. That does not look smooth at all. And just the proportions are a little off. The whole neck and head of the bird could stand to be a little bit wider. So let's just scroll down here, and I've got my highlights and my green shape. I'm going to just lock both of those just so I can like drag a selection over the top of the bird's head here, and I can use my arrow keys, nudge it down, maybe nudge it over to the right a little bit. I'm just selecting with the direct selection tool, so all I'm doing is selecting those individual points of the path and adjusting them. In fact, I'm going to drag this anchor point over a little bit, kind of something like that, change the shape of the bird's head. I really need to select this here, and we need to clean this up. This is a little messy here. I need to pull this up a little bit, maybe over a touch. See what that looks like getting closer. Hold down Alt or Option here. We'll just drag this point. Kind of just really try to get that nice and smooth on that side. All right, I think that's a bit better. Maybe I'll select all these points again and just nudge them down a little bit. By nudging the bird's head down, it's going to make the neck of the bird appear a little bit wider just because it's not quite as long. So it's a little bit of an optical illusion, but I think it works. Just in terms of proportion, I think it works. Just nudge that out that way a little bit. Let's see, select this here. Maybe I'll nudge this point over. Maybe I'll nudge it up a little bit. You can really just play with everything at this point. I'm going to pull this handle over, kind of sharpen the fall that comes off the back of the bird's head there. All right, that's pretty cool. I think that'll be the shape of the bird that we settle with in this case. I want to, before I do anything here, I want to punch an eye here in the side of the bird's head. Sounds very violent, but it's nice and peaceful here for our bird. So I'm going to take a little circle, maybe about that big, and basically I'm choosing to put it there because I want to align almost the center of the eyeball with right here at the top of the beak. That's kind of my rationale for putting the eyeball where I have it, and then kind of just move it back far enough into the head so it looks somewhat normal. And then Shift, select the bird, go to the Pathfinder panel, and just choose this option here, minus front, to punch that hole. Now you're going to see here we got a new shape, so we're going to have to remask our compound path, that is. So just select that green shape in the back. Well, we have to unlock it. Select that green shape in the back. Command or Control C to copy it. Select the compound path. Let's just double click to add a mask. Command or Control F to paste in front, and then just double click to change the fill to a solid white. All right, so there we go. We've got the blue bird on the green shape. We really haven't messed with colors yet, but we'll get colorizing in a second. Let's select the blue bird thumbnail here to get back to our editing mode. Now you can see here, if we take a quick peek, I'm going to collapse Pathfinder for a moment. We got these 4 ellipses here, these 4 ellipse layers. Those are our guides. So if I come here to view and turn the guides back on, guides, show guides, you can see those turn back on. You can see we very loosely followed them. We had to adjust our path a little bit, but they gave us a good point at which to begin, which is the reason I love using guides to help me create kind of these free-form shapes. It can really help constrain you. And if you know anything about the golden ratio, you can really use them when you're messing around with the golden ratio to really create beautiful shapes. We didn't really golden ratio this out, but we certainly got some. We got a nice shape out of it. I'll put it to you that way. So I'll unlock my highlights here as well. Let's go ahead now and add some color to the background shape. Well, certainly not the green color. Let's go to the gradient here, and let's fill it with a gradient. We'll adjust the angle and everything of the gradient. If you like the normal black to white, hey, stick with black and white by all means. I want to set the white color stop here. I want to just double-click on the white. Well, not double-click on it, just single-click it. I'm used to double-clicking for some reason. I'm going to double-click here to open up the color panel, and I'm going to select this little top right flyout menu and choose RGB, and I want to change the white color stop to 00 FFFF. And you can see it's just this very, very light cyan color. It's really cool looking. You can see it's just a beautiful, crystal-y looking color. We're going to select the darker color stop here, and I'm going to change this to FF00BA, which is a very sharp, kind of punchy, hot pink / magenta color, which the two colors together just, they look beautiful. But what I want my darker color to be down here at the bottom of the shape, so it almost looks like there's some shadowing behind the bird. So I can change that angle right here. I can try setting this to like 90 degrees, but you can see 90 degrees is exactly the wrong angle. So let's just go negative 90 degrees. There we go. The purple at the bottom, the sort of tealish color at the top. Now I want to be able to see a little bit more of this dark pink, so I'm just going to drag the pink slider over a little bit to just bring that up, and then I'll push and collapse it a little bit more so I make sure I maintain a really strong aqua teal color at the top. Just by sliding that middle point right there. I'm also going to select the bird, and let's just fill him with white because we just want him to be solid white. And you can see now it just looks like he's blending with the background. We're going to fix that here because we're going to select this compound shape, and don't worry, the thumbnails here lately in Illustrator have been late catching up to the artwork. This is the shape we're working on despite the fact that it's reading still as the blue bird. We'll select the bird. We will go Edit Copy, and we will go Edit Paste in Front. And this compound path in front, we're now going to fill with a gradient. So let's just click on the gradient thumbnail here, and it's going to give us that same aqua to dark magenta colored thumbnail, but I want to change a couple things. Number one, I want to just drag the magenta all the way back over and drag my center point back to about 50%. You can see the location marker there. About 50% is fine. We're going to tweak and adjust this here in a moment. I'm most interested, number one, in setting the teal slider to white. So just drag the top slider over so all three of our numbers are 255. That's going to give us solid white. That's great. But we also want to change the type to radial gradient. Now that we have a radial gradient, I want to take my gradient tool and I want to like start right up here by the top of the bird's head and just drag straight down, something like that, maybe down into the rest of the bird. Maybe I'll start closer to the middle of his head, kind of something like that. But now I really just want there to be a little bit of like purple shading around the edges. So I really need to push the white out. So I need to push white out. I need to drag this over to really push that purple back, right? Because the whole idea is we just want a little bit of like shading / shadowiness there around the edges. So something like that I think will be really nice. Now remember, we still have the solid white bird underneath. That's this right here. In fact, I'll name that layer white bird. Now this bird on top, all we need to do is reduce the opacity. So we'll set transparency here. We'll change the opacity setting to like 35%. So it's just going to give us this nice subtle shadow along the bottom. But the key is that shadow color is the same color as the darkest color in our background gradient. So it's almost as if that color is going to wrap right around. What I do want to do is add a little bit of like shading to the cheek of the bird. So we're going to do this again using the pen tool, and it's going to be super easy for us to do because we have our smart guides turned on. I'm such a big fan of smart guides if you haven't been able to tell. I want to start here at the anchor point, which is making up the actual beak of the bird. I'm going to click. I'm going to drag out my tangent handle like that. I'm going to come right through maybe to about here. I'll just drag that shape, voila, like that. Hold down my Alt or Option key and just click right on that anchor point. And I'm going to drag a little bit of like a hook back this way, almost like we're creating lightning. Hold down Alt or Option, click on that again. And then I'm just going to click and drag out a nice long curved shape like that. So you can see we've got this crazy shape just like that. I actually like this pink gradient. You can hit the Enter key, by the way, to just, we've completed our path. This is the shape we're going to use. I'll show you how it's going to work in a second. What we need to do is rotate our gradient. So I'm just going to select the gradient. In fact, I'm going to reset the parameters of the gradient a little bit here. Try to bring back a little bit more of that pink. We're going to make it a linear gradient, not radial gradient, by the way. And I'm going to take the gradient tool here, and I'm just going to pull straight down. You know what? Actually, I want to hit this icon here to reverse the colors on the gradient because I want this to be shadow first. So I'm going to drag it. Yeah, kind of something like that is perfect. We'll just add that shadow. And now if we go to transparency and we just hit multiply, it's going to drop away all the white, just save the dark stuff. We still need to mask it to our bird shape. So I'm going to select the white bird right down here on my layers panel, select that, copy it to the clipboard, Command or Control C, go up here to our path that we're working on, double click to add the layer mask as we've been doing all along, and then edit, paste in front to just paste it right in place. It's already filled with solid white, so that's perfect. Select the shape to get back to our normal editing mode, and we really want to reduce the opacity of this little shadow. So maybe I'll set this to like 25%, maybe even less depending on if it needs that. But I think 25%, maybe a little bit less than that. Let's take it down to like 15. Subtle is good. Subtle's beautiful. Subtle's smooth. And at this point, you can just go in and continue tweaking the shape. Like I feel like the top of the bird's head still needs a little adjusting, but it's not too bad. I kind of like where we're headed. And just remember, if you change the top of the bird's head, you're going to have to change it for both the compound shape and the white bird, which is fine because you can select both layers together and adjust. You can adjust the anchor points by dragging them around that way. Or you can just duplicate, like if you just edit the white bird, you can duplicate that layer and then just use your eyedropper tool and sample the gradient on this layer, and it'll sample it exactly as you have it placed, and it'll just work out really, really nicely. So you can see there's an outline of what we created, and there is the final finished effect. If I just zoom out, you can really get a good idea of what we just made. So yeah, there you go. We took it from this little sketch here, if I can get it to stand up. Took it from that little sketch full through to the completed effect right here, right now. Now, if you do create this effect, please do upload it to Instagram. Tag me. My handle is @tutvid. That's TUTVID. I'll have a bug show up somewhere here on the screen. If you enjoyed the tutorial, of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss any more of these tutorials. Again, a huge shout out to the original artist, dribble.com/yoga. Amazing, incredible work by that artist. You really, really, really gotta check them out. So, for creating this 3D styled icon in Adobe Illustrator, using shapes as guides and smart guides in the pen tool to really create these shapes and have some semblance of control over what we're drawing and creating, and mixing that with highlights and masking and gradients and everything else that we covered in this tutorial. Guys, that's it. Get it? Got it? Good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one.